This is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Spotlight. You know, in the world at large, there's a lot of people who are very, very curious about finding out more about the meaning of life. A lot of Jews are doing research. A lot of Jews are asking questions. People are not just satisfied with the basic answers about, we're Jewish, so we do this, so we do that. And one area that a lot of people have begun the process of really searching into is the area of Kaballah. Now, the word Kaballah, for those of you familiar with the name, brings up and conjures a lot of different ideas and thoughts and sometimes suspicions. But it's a very down-to-earth approach to Judaism and approach to life. And it's one that deserves a lot of your attention, because I bet you, if you stick with us for the next half hour, you're going to find a lot of things about yourself and about life that perhaps you never knew that Judaism could shed light on. In order to look into this a little bit more, I invited to be with me tonight a young scholar, one of our rabbis here on staff, a colleague of mine, who is very, very dedicated in his work to help in establishing and working with Chabad House out in the east end of Long Island. His name is Menny Goldberg, and we're very happy to have him with us today. Rabbi Goldberg, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, too.
And I know you're the Associate Director for Lubavitch of the East End and also the Director for the Chabad House right in Quorum. And a lot of people, when they hear that, they probably say to you, Rabbi, there are Jews in Quorum?
Yes, believe it or not, we meet many Jews, more than you can think.
It's really amazing. And you know, people who live in the Queens or in Manhattan, they drive out maybe to the island once in a while, perhaps past the area on their way to the Hamptons.
And some people don't even know Quorum exists.
That's right. That's right. They see it in exit 64 in the expressway, and they say, oh, there's a place called Quorum.
Mount Sinai. That
Right.
sticks out more.
Right. But I know that you have your hands full as far as the amount of work that's doing and only wonderful things that are going on. And I want to talk about it later on in the show, get a little bit more into the specifics, but I do want to get into the meat of the subject for today's program. That is the Kaballah. What is the Kaballah? Give our viewers a little bit of an introduction. What do we mean when we're talking about the Kaballah?
Well, Kabbalah, based on the actual translation of the word Kabbalah, means tradition.
Okay.
It's something which has been a tradition from generation to generation. It was not transcribed in any text for a period of time until later on, which we find Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, which was the first one that actually to transcribe some Kabbalistic texts, and he's considered as the founding father of Kabbalah.
Right, he wrote the book, the Zohar.
He wrote the book, the Zohar, which is like the written law of the Zohar, so to speak. And but the Zohar actually comes from Adam. Adam wrote the first book of the Kabbalah, which is Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation. That's going back 5,763 years ago.
Okay.
And that was passed on to Abraham and then to Moses. And we're told that when God gave the Torah was given with the revealed part of the Torah, that's the regular part of the Torah, the Code of Jewish Law, and the Talmud, and the Mishnah, and everything else. And then, ultimately, with it was the hidden parts of the Torah, which we refer to as the Kabbalah.
Okay, now, when you say hidden parts of the Torah, what does it mean, hidden parts? We know that Judaism, its practices, it's very down to earth, it's morals, it's ethics, it's a way of life. What does it mean, hidden aspects of Torah?
Okay, so when we have the hidden aspects of the Torah, it means more the mystical parts of it. The reason why we call it the hidden parts of it is because it's not tangible. It's not something that every common, regular person will understand. When you talk to him and you tell him that something is happening with cosmos or flying, when you're doing something, he doesn't see it.
Okay.
It's only because it's hidden, it's behind him, he doesn't realize that it's happening.
So let's take, for instance, if you open up a Torah, you're not going to be studying about the existence of a soul. But if you study Kabbalah, are you going to be finding out and learning what it means to have a soul?
Well, if you study the Torah with the Kabbalistic interpretations, and of course it's all based, in fact, the Zohar goes according to the Torah and is split up according to the 5 books of the Bible, and therefore you will find, if you look into the deeper meaning, reading between the lines of the Torah, then you'll see the Kabbalistic perspective.
Okay, so describe for us a little bit, what does the Kabbalah say about a soul?
For example, let's take the soul. What is the soul? And just to give you a little example of what the soul is and why Kabbalah helps us use the soul, there's a story about this young scholar that came into the Lubavitcher Rebbe for once a private audience, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe demanded him and said, "You're not studying enough. You're an intelligent young man, but you're not studying enough." So he says, "I have no time." And as soon as he said that, he caught himself and said, who can say that he has no time? The Lubavitcher Rebbe is the most busiest person and is telling him to do something. So he says, Not that I don't have enough time, but, you know, it's very difficult. So he says, you know, a bird has on it wings. And the wings, if it doesn't utilize the wings to fly, it's just a burden on the bird. The same thing is also a body and a soul. The soul has the body to be able to get the soul moving. If it's not going to do anything, if it's going to be idle, then there's nothing worth of the body.
Right.
So really the main thing is the soul in Jewish tradition, and the main item of the Jewish component of any person, anything actually that ever exists, and the main component is the soul. The physical that comes around it is only assisting the soul that is in it to be able to escalate and go from level to level, whatever that may mean.
So a Jew in the street who just wants to know about Kabbalah will all of a sudden be introduced to a level of looking at Judaism as a balance between the body and soul, not just looking at the physical traditions and the rituals, the customs of the holidays and so forth.
Not only that, but he'll realize that his body is a conduit for his soul. That his body is
merge
not
the two.
And therefore the people that are maybe very physical and materialistic will step back aside and say, 1 minute, this is not it. There's something more than this. And then they come to realize there's another world, there's another area, there's another era, there's another whole interesting idea, and a whole new shed of light opens up to them. Because they realize the soul is something that they can be in touch with, and that's what Kabbalah is. Telling you that there is this spiritual thing, but you can touch it, and you can do it, and you can get to it.
Okay, now I want to switch lanes a little bit, and then we'll come back to this topic. But some of the people looking might say, well, this is a very young rabbi. My rabbi never talked about these things. And I heard that to study the Kabbalah, you have to be at least 40 years old, or you have to be advanced, and so forth and so on. Can you explain how it is that you've studied so much about Kabbalah and are able to so comfortably speak about these subjects when many rabbis never study it and are uncomfortable during their whole career speaking about it?
Well, in order to explain that first, you would have to know the history of Kabbalah. And as we said before, Kabbalah, it means tradition. Since it was never transcribed, so therefore people were always very worried to teach it. Because who knows how you're going to say it? Are you going to say it right? Are you not going to say it right? You have to make sure you get the tradition right, and you got to make sure you have the right words to say it. And in fact, there's
as with anything in the oral tradition of Judaism,
that's
they
true.
were always very careful to transmit even the slightest little law.
That's right. And every little law, in fact, in the new prints, they see spelling mistakes, how whole laws can change and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, with Kabbalah, the common mistake is that there are two parts of Kabbalah. There's the intellectual part of Kabbalah, and then there's the practical part of Kabbalah. Not the practical part of Kabbalah, how we apply it to our practical application, but the practical part of Kabbalah as in the knowledge, as I'll soon explain, which is the intellectual part of Kabbalah is knowing the soul, the cosmos, the world, the inner sides of us. However, then there's the practical Kabbalah, which is only left for unique individuals, which is, for example, creating a golem, writing amulets, using a mezuzah, using a person's palm. As we know, there's palm readers in the non-Jewish world. It all stems from the Jewish world, where there was, according to Kabbalah, some person's body reflects what his soul is, and therefore one is able to know how the person's emotions are feeling.
There's also astrology in Kabbalah. You have
astrology
numerology.
and all these different things in Kabbalah. And what happened was it was abused throughout the generations. People really stuck. Maimonides was a great philosopher, at the same time a great Kabbalist, and most of his talks, according to the Code of Jewish Law, is based on Kabbalah. Even the Code of Jewish Law, the most common Jews practice today, is based on Code of Jewish Law, and they don't even notice that it's based on Kabbalah. Even the Siddur, the regular text that they're praying from every single day, is set up according to Kabbalah. So all these things are Kabbalah. The problem is that some things were put more on the side, more on the shelf, because they're a little far stretched for the regular person to understand without in-depth study. And therefore, it came to a certain stretch of time that they said, you know what, it's getting too far. Maimonides, Nachmanides, in his times, there was yeshivas of Kabbalah. Rav Moshe Cordovero, he was the first one to actually open up a real school where all they studied was Kabbalah. And they weren't only over 40 years old, they were even young students as my age.
Give us a timeline on that.
He was around right before the Spanish Inquisition. In fact, the time of Columbus, the one that discovered America. We know that there's a tradition that there was a note that was found that says Beis Hey, the two letters which mean thank God. And we're told that who is that? Those were the students of Rav Moshe Cordovero on that boat with him that helped them find and discover America.
Okay, we don't have to get into that.
We don't want to get into that all. Yeah, okay. But that's Rav Moshe Cordovero, and he studied Kabbalah. Not only did he study, but he preached it and had a school of it. Later on, because of the era of what the people were going through, the pogroms, and the different situations that the Jewish people had, the persecutions that they were going against, certain scholars used the practical Kabbalah to help them out. However, in the time of Chmielnicki, after that Shabtai Tzvi, the false Messiah, came about and abused Kabbalah, therefore a ban came out that Kabbalah should not be studied unless somebody is thorough. At the age of 40, I'm not sure where that comes from, but the actual sources that I've seen is that unless somebody is thorough in the Talmud and the Code of Jewish Law and all its commentaries.
Okay, so you're in your 20s, correct?
Right.
How are you studying Kabbalah?
How am I? Because that ban was only for the practical Kabbalah. And what we are studying today is more the application of Kabbalah to every individual, and every person has the right to see it. And that is today the Chabad, in fact, which stands for, the acronym is for wisdom, conception, comprehension, and knowledge, is in fact a diluted, so to speak, a Kabbalah, or it's not even diluted, it has distilled Kabbalah that has everything in it and is given to you, use it user-friendly for today. So the Tanya, which is the Bible of Hasidic philosophy, is the user-friendly Kabbalah for today, which doesn't make a difference what age, how scholarly, how
Okay, so in other words,
intellectual,
in the Tanya and in some of the Hasidic texts, it takes the concepts of Kabbalah, the teachings of the Kabbalah, and is able to bring it to a point where it's something that everybody can...
And makes it
can relate to.
user-friendly.
Makes it user-friendly. From what age on? Let's say, for instance, in your education, from what age on did you start?
From what age? From 12 years old, or from even 13, right before Bar Mitzvah, we study some Kabbalistic ramifications, what the tefillin means, what tzitzit means.
Okay.
And even earlier, we're always taught that these letters are holy. Kabbalah teaches us that letters are holy. Torah letters are holy. Any letter which is a formation that was God given by Moses down from Mount Sinai is holy and should be studied, and that Jewish children should always look at them and stare at them, and this should be engraved in their mind. And what did we look at? Kabbalistic formations.
Interesting. Now, how does a study of Kabbalah affect a person in their own personal life? In other words, how would it change my attitude, change my perspective perhaps, give me more of a sense of connectedness to God, joy in life, whatever? Give us a little bit of an
Kabbalah
insight.
would tell you how to maximize what you have. Every person is made up of two components, the soul and the body. Kabbalah is going to tell them how to combine the two. You have the evil inclination, you have the good inclination. What are they trying to achieve? What do they want to accomplish? What's the strategy? Like there's a war, there's a zone, there's an area that you're fighting over. What's the strategy that you're going to accomplish it? The body is physical, the soul is spiritual. A person by nature wants to become more spiritual. Wherever it is, that's why we see today the big fad of Kabbalah, that everybody wants to study Kabbalah. Because people by nature want to become more spiritual. That's the way they're created. Kabbalah gives them the ingredient to be able to become more spiritual.
So Kabbalah is working on the premise then that God is our creator. God is giving us basically the layout, the architectural plans of how he created the world. By us better understanding our inner makeup, we're able to be more productive, we're able to understand the forces that are going on within us, and then be able to develop our potential to a greater degree.
That's right. That's right. So Kabbalah is telling us how everything works up there, to know what your aim is, where your goal is, where do you come from. You like to know where you come from. When you meet a person on the street and you see he's from South American, so you know the type of foods he likes, you know the type of restaurants he wants to go to, the type of music. It's a culture. Kabbalah is telling us the culture of the soul, what kind of food it likes, what kind of music it likes, to be able to get the soul in tune. Because the soul is coming from a spiritual place down into a physical body,
right,
into ultimate materialism.
Right, so the soul needs soul food.
Right.
And being that the soul is, by definition, connected to God, it's up to the Kabbalah and the Torah, really, to give the ability to us, who are the inhabitants of that body, to be able to know how to connect to the soul.
And to feed it, and to make sure that it's sustained properly.
Right. Now, in terms of, let's say, joy, having more of a changing a person's attitude towards life, how does Kabbalah bring happiness into life?
Well, Kabbalah gives you a perspective of what joy really means. And taking into what does joy accomplish? Where does joy come from? So first of all, Kabbalah tells you that joy stems from self-nullification. In order for one to actually accomplish true joy, he cannot be an egotistic value within him. Or else he's not happy. Or else he's happy because of a cause. And that joy is eventually not going to last. You want an eternal joy, something that's going to be perpetuated for generations, that you should live with it and not care about what's going on around you. For example, when somebody's in a trance of joy, he's dancing, he doesn't care what's around him. A circle, he doesn't care who's in the circle. Everybody's connected. That's step number one, is self-nullification.
But what if a person feels they're not able to do that? That means they can't have true joy?
In a remote way, every person can do that. Because in a remote way, he can put himself into a trance and say, I can be happy, whatever it may be. For example, if a person is, let's say, at a wedding, the bride and the groom, don't they realize that everybody's around there? Don't they realize that they're the center of attention and they're seemingly egotistic because they're the bride and the groom? But what are they focusing on? That they are connecting, the bride is connecting with the groom is connected with the bride. That's their joy. Because they're not thinking about themselves, they're thinking about each other. Therefore, their joy is always going to be
so
there.
By self-nullification, you mean really just to go beyond yourself, not to be consumed by yourself, be able to live your life with other concerns outside of yourself being a priority instead of only yourself being the priority. Because the more we get consumed by yourself,
the more you think about yourself.
And the more you need, and the more you're dissatisfied with what you have and feel that
you're always going to want more and more and more.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Okay, what would be the next step as far as joy?
The next step, if you really have the true joy, then joy can break all boundaries. Torah teaches us, Simcha poretz geder. Joy breaks boundaries. And when a person's happy, he can do anything. When a person, in fact, there's an interesting quote that there's something which is not a commandment, but it's greater than all commandments, or something that's not a transgression, but it's worse than all transgressions. And it says depression. It's not a transgression, but it's worse than any transgression because it can bring you to do. Of course, it's a very powerful feeling. It can be a domino effect to many different things that a person may do wrong since he becomes depressed. When a person's happy and a person wakes up in the morning with a smile on his face, automatically his work is different. You go into a workplace, just a regular simple analogy of what joy means. And the boss walks in and smiles at you and says, good morning. Doesn't your day start off better? The coffee that you're drinking all of a sudden tastes better? Because, wow, the boss smiled at me today. And the same thing is also public relations. You smile at the people, they're excited. That's the first step. That's a minuscule of what really joy is. And you see it breaking boundaries. Now imagine if you'll have that full joy, totally be in that trance of happiness. Just to give you a little example of what happiness means, a little story. There was once this person that came to the Maggid of Mezrich and told him, how can I always thank God for whatever happens? I have many bad things happening in my life. And so on. How can I be happy? So he told him, you know what? Go to a student of mine, Reb Zusha of Anipoli, the very famous two brothers, and one of them was Reb Zusha, in a remote town, and ask him this question. He'll answer you your question. He goes to the city of Anipoli, he's looking for him, he can't find him, and finally goes to a distant village, and he finds Reb Zusha sitting there, barely a stack of hay on the floor, nothing in his house, some water that's sitting there for a few days, almost nothing there. And he looks inside, this guy's going to tell me what happiness means. This guy doesn't know what happiness should be. And he looks at him and he tells Reb Zusha, asks him, yes, can I help you? So he says, yes, your teacher, the Maggid of Mezrich, sent me here. So he says, yes, how can I help you? So he says, he told me that you should teach me about happiness, how I should find happiness in my life. So Reb Zusha turns to him and says, I was never upset. I'm not depressed. I have nothing to be depressed about. Everything's beautiful in my life. Everything's great. So what joy does to you, it puts you in a perspective. It puts you in that attitude.
Right, because the attitude is really where it's at. To a great degree. Another thing I know that I want to share with our viewers as well is, because I don't know if I can live like Reb Zusha, and I'm not up to trances yet. So as far as basically making sure that we feeling the closeness between God and the world is something also that Kaballah teaches to a great degree. How they're really, when we say God is one, we're not talking about God being one up there as opposed to 2, 3, or 4.
Intimately,
it's an intimate, right. There's a personal relationship. Right. A very, very intimate personal relationship that with no distance whatsoever. That God's essence is really found in and is part of everything in existence. So that when a person living their life from day to day, it's intimately involved with the essence of God. And as a result, that's a tremendous source of joy as well.
In fact, that's what Kaballah teaches us. Kaballah teaches us that we have that intimate relationship with God. It's all what we make of it.
Right, right.
It's there.
And the potential is there. It's just a matter of us.
It's just us
like
igniting
the Rebbe
that
often
spark.
said, if you're looking for God, look right within. It's not a matter of going to synagogue or reading or looking all over the place. It's right in there, and it's just a matter of bringing that spark out.
The relationship is there. The spark is there. You just have to ignite it.
Right. Just like you said, you have the hidden Torah and you have the revealed Torah. Mm-hmm. So the hidden is the soul, and you have the revealed part of ourselves, and the part of what the Kabbalah teaches is how to connect to the hidden part of ourselves, to take the soul and make it more manifest.
And that's why we find the Kabbalah in everything we do, from customs to prayer to Torah study, in every aspect of a person's life. from family life to religious life to school life,
Right,
there is
right.
Kabbalah which can gear him and focus him and show him to get into
Right.
with those
Now,
things.
do you teach Kabbalah in Quorum? I mean, of Quorum of all places, maybe Mount Sinai I can understand teaching Kabbalah, but in Quorum they teach Kabbalah?
We had, in fact, a class in Kabbalah, and
How many people came? Two,
we had
three?
about 25 people that showed up to our.
25 people in Quorum.
Interestingly enough, it was a large turnout of nice amount of people.
Very nice.
And to the extent that they want to continue it, and we're starting after Hanukkah, we'll be starting another series of classes called Towards a Meaningful Life, and for a 6-week session, and every
This is
single
a
week.
year-round type of activity.
It's separate courses,
Very
to be able
nice.
to keep the.
Very, very nice. And now we're back in Quorum. What other types of things do you do in Quorum?
We have, besides that, we have the regular minyan on Shabbos, the Shabbos,
Right.
Shabbat services, Friday night services
Right. I
throughout
think it's
the whole
only proper you
Shabbos.
mentioned Rabbi Label Baumgarten, who of
that's-
course has been there for how many, 18, 20
And the
years?
founder of the Lubavitch at the East End.
Right, and building up to it tremendously out there with tremendous success, and people all over the East End know of Rabbi Baumgarten.
That's right.
So you're also the chaplain in
And
the
then
hospitals?
I visit the hospitals on a weekly basis in Mathers and St. Charles
Great.
and other hospitals around the area. And people refer to us if they need anything in the hospital. The hospital will call us if somebody needs a prayer book, if somebody needs to pray with somebody. Unfortunate times, and in the fortunate times to help people out with circumcisions and so on, when they're giving birth or baby naming and that sort.
Right. I think of people in the city or even in Nassau County or surrounding counties of the city can't really relate to what life is like as a Jew in Quorum because it's so spread out and there's no real central pockets of the Jewish community as you would find in many different parts of the city.
That's true.
So your work as a Chabad Shliach, as a Chabad rabbi, really is a matter of aggressively looking and finding those sparks in different places and just keeping your ears open.
It's interesting you mentioned that. The fact the first few weeks that I was there, and I said, where am I going to find the Jews here? And I started driving down the street and I see a Jewish name and I knock on the door and they say, hello, I'm a new rabbi in town. And in fact, we met some very nice people from that way, surprise attacks as they call them, cold calls.
Very nice. What kind of nachas or sense of enjoyment do you get from the work? What is your favorite type of activity?
My favorite type of activity is every day is a new challenge. That every single day you're going to meet another person, you don't know what the person's going to want. Today it's going to be a circumcision, tomorrow it's going to be somebody passing away, tomorrow it's going to be a bar mitzvah, tomorrow it's just going to want a friendly chat.
Right.
And that's the most beautiful thing about a Chabad rabbi is, and that's why I chose this profession, so to speak, even though I was born with it, and I always aspired, and I wanted to be with, and so on. But one of the beautiful things about it is that you can be the person's rabbi and friend at the same time.
Right.
And you can be their counselor and their spiritual leader and their halachic authority, whatever it means. You're a one-man show, and that's what people love.
Right.
That they can come to you for anything. They can
Interesting.
have a nice
And I know you're
football
building
game.
a very nice community there, which
And
is
God
very nice.
willing,
Your
we're
phone
building-
number, do you want to give our audience your phone number?
Is 698-4000.
Okay.
And we also
That's
have a
area code
website.
631
631-698-4000.
The website
It is chabadofeastend.com. You can see all our different programs and lectures and courses and activities that we're having for different occasions, maybe the holidays or
Great.
maybe the
Okay.
whatever
so
it be at
I
any
hope
time.
everybody checks in, and of course you have services out in the Hamptons also during
That's
the summer
during the
months.
summer
for anybody
months.
who's interested.
And God willing, we're building a mikveh soon in Quorum. We're soon
Unbelievable.
going to break ground to build
That's
a mikveh
great.
for the whole of second mikveh in Suffolk County, right?
Right. Very
So-
good. And the third mikveh will be
And
out
the
in
third
East Hampton.
East Hampton, that's starting next
Another
week,
Chabad
breaking
minyan.
ground this
Right.
week already.
Very nice. Now, getting back to your Kabbalah class, what kind of reactions do you find from the people who come to it? Are these people who have a Jewish background, have no Jewish background, this is their first taste of Judaism that they're embarking upon?
When we advertised the Kabbalah class, it was interesting to see the people that responded an interest, which people that don't even come to shul on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Not even the high holidays type of Jews.
See, some people think, how can you teach somebody Kabbalah? You have to first teach them about an aleph and a beis. You have to teach them about the Sabbath or about kosher.
And I
the
have
fact
some
is-
complaints like that.
Yeah, but the fact is, it's almost in reverse order. And I find it also, over and over again, this is the taste that they want to have, because they're not going to be convinced necessarily about the truths of Judaism until they feel that they can connect personally
That's
to
true.
God on a very, very personal level. This is the reactions I've found. I don't know if you've
And
had
also,
the same thing.
I had a complaint. Somebody called me up and says, what are you starting a Kabbalah course? Imagine that. Somebody said, starting a Kabbalah course, people don't know anything. First teach them about Shabbos. I said, first of all, it's not a contradiction one to the other.
Right.
We can teach them about Kabbalah, and since they know the importance the Kabbalistic ramification of keeping Shabbos, then eventually they'll want to keep
Do
the
you
Shabbos.
see people growing in that sense, that because of their contact with Kabbalah, their new knowledge about the depths of Judaism?
I see their contact that they're more interested now in Chabad. They have more of interest to study further about Judaism. They see that this opens up, like Judaism is not just something, a tradition that has nothing to do with me, that only stays in the textbooks and nothing to do with me.
Right.
That it only becomes, sometimes people look at Judaism that I can't do this, I can't do that, and I can't do this.
Right.
I can't go to that restaurant, I can't buy this food, and I can't.
It's a bunch of do's and don'ts.
It's a bunch of do's and don'ts. And over here they look at Kabbalah, no, it has to do with me, with my family, with the way I live, with the way I'm going to interact with people around me. And when I follow this way of life, I'll have a happier life, a more enlightened life, and be more in touch with myself.
I think that people find, as they continue to study, that one of the beauties of this way is that it's not something that detaches you from the world. In many other religions, you have to be detached. You have to go off to be in a separate area. To the contrary, the approach of Kabbalah is to bring God down to your life, to bring heaven down to earth, not to leave the earth and become heavenly or spiritual or live like an angel. It's to incorporate these spiritual values and make it very much a part of your day-to-day life. And that is what is so unique about it, and I think what attracts so many people to it, because it's a very practical way of merging the spiritual and the physical, of infusing your basic mundane life with very high spiritual values.
In fact, I had somebody that I used to study with him, a one-on-one partnership with he's in fact studied all Eastern philosophies. He spent many years in India. And this was the first time he actually studied Kabbalah, which was we were studying the Tanya. And we were discussing the 10 levels, the 10 cosmos, how they evolve and how they act, the Sfirot,
right,
and how they actually apply to a person's practical application in daily life when he has a challenge coming across him, how he starts from conception to comprehension to knowledge to attraction, and he goes through all the steps. And then he realizes that he uses that ambition and he can overcome it. In the Eastern philosophies, it wasn't a big deal, he said, because who were you sitting out there in the dooms of who knows where, of India and everything else? You had no challenges.
Right.
Kabbalah teaches you in a challenging world how to overcome it.
Exactly. Okay, Rabbi Goldberg, it's been a pleasure. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure here, too.
Continued success in your holy work and very important work with all the families you're involved in. And, of course, you can continue teaching with the enthusiasm that you have. In the meantime, I hope that everybody out there would have a little bit more of a taste of what's going on really in the heart of Judaism, the soul of Judaism. And if you haven't had an opportunity to find out more about it, go on to KaballahOnline.com, call up the number you'll see at the end of the show to ask more information about places where there are classes on Kabbalah or other sources that you can find, whether it be in Barnes & Nobles or Borders or looking up in any of a number of locations. Kahot Online, K-E-H-O-T Online, also has many sites, many offerings in the Kabbalistic area and Hasidic philosophy. So in the meantime, take care in order to be able to do something meaningful in your life, and this is about as meaningful as you get, because you'll be surprised how in a very practical way the Kabbalah, Hasidic thought, Chabad philosophy can really add an extra dimension about your understanding of what it means to be a Jew, to be a human being, to be a productive member of your family and your community, and lift you up from the bottom up in order to be able to make life the meaningful thing that it's meant to be. So God willing, we should all be able to celebrate that fulfillment of our potential in a way that really lends to us a taste of that special meaning of life that we find so important to be able to get. So with that in mind, I just want to say, keep up the good work, do a mitzvah, do something good to make your life better, make your community better, and study a little Kabbalah and Hasidic thought. You'll be surprised what you get out of it. Shalom.